So my research for the Centre of Excellence in Food Security is about the role of social protection and food security. In other words, what can social grants and school feeding and public works programs contribute to food security in South Africa? And there's a real paradox here, because on the one hand, we know that South Africa produces enough food. We know that social grants have been increasing over time. We now have 12 million children getting the child support grant, and that only started in 1998. And yet, since the early 1990s, child malnutrition rates, stunting, have been really high, around 25, 27%, and they've stayed at that rate. They haven't come down at all. So in over 20 years of adequate food production, rising social protection programs, and also people saying that hunger is coming down, we are not seeing any reduction in child malnutrition. This is what we call the food security paradox. So obviously there are many possible explanations. One is that the social grants are not enough. They are not very large in terms of their value. They don't buy enough food. But also they tend to be diluted. They're used by many people, other family members, and they're also used for other purposes, not just for food, but all the basic needs that families have, from shelter and clothing to education, transport. So they're diluted between many uses and many users. And that means that we're not seeing the impact of the child grant, for example, that we would expect to have on child malnutrition. If you look at school feeding programs, we're also finding not such a big impact on nutrition, but that's not unexpected, because all over the world, school feeding programs don't directly impact on nutrition. That's because they're only given during the school day. They're only given for 5 days a week and not during holidays. They're also just one meal, and sometimes they are replacing a meal the child would have got at home anyway. So they're not making that big a difference. And of course, the quality of the diet also matters. They don't always get such a nutritious food through the school meals program. If you look at public works programs, we do have quite a large public works program in South Africa, which is employing a large number of people, but that also provides very small income, not really enough to make a difference to nutrition status of the children of those people working on the projects. So I think there's lots of explanations. There's also the fact that it's not just about money. Nutrition status is affected by hygiene, diet choices that people make. So you could have enough money but be buying the wrong food, or you could be buying the right food but still having diarrhea in the family because of sanitation problems, that you don't have access to good sanitation. And therefore the nutrition status of the child is compromised even if they're getting enough food. So it's quite a complex thing. And I think what's quite instructive is to learn from other countries. So if you look at Brazil, for example, they had a very big success in bringing down child stunting rates from 36% to 7% in about 20 years. And looking at the reasons for that, it seems to be a combination of three things. Investment in mothers' education. If educated mothers know more about proper care and breastfeeding and so on for the child has better nutrition outcomes. Secondly, investment in sanitation systems, so that more households got access to good sanitation and clean water supplies. And thirdly, rising incomes, which was partly through minimum wage increases and partly through investment in social protection programs. So they do work, but only in combination with other interventions. So summing up, I would say that social protection is important and necessary, but not sufficient on its own. It has to go together with other policies if you want to achieve big impacts on food security and nutrition.